Carl Jung once said, "Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens." This quote captures one of the most profound ideas in analytical psychology. The reality we perceive externally is often a projection of our internal conflicts. Jung believed that our perception of the world is shaped not only by our experiences, but also by the emotional and psychological states we carry within us. In other words, what we see outside is often a reflection of what we're grappling with on the inside. The phrase, "Reality is a mirror of your inner conflicts," sums up how our thoughts, emotions, and unresolved wounds influence the way we interact with the world and interpret our experiences. Jung developed the idea that both the personal and collective unconscious are always present, affecting our perception and behavior, even when we are unaware of it. That's why he emphasized so much the need to look within and confront these conflicts. This inner analysis leads us to the concept of projection, where we transfer our unresolved feelings, thoughts, and desires onto other people or external situations. By projecting our internal conflicts, we become blind to the true causes of our difficulties, and in doing so, we perpetuate our problems instead of resolving them. Jung suggested that, to truly understand reality and our place in it, we must first confront and integrate these repressed elements within our unconscious. As we move further into self-discovery, we might ask, what if the challenges, obstacles, and frustrations we face in the external world are actually clues to unresolved conflicts within us? What if, instead of trying to change the external circumstances, we focused on transforming ourselves? This shift in perspective could lead us to a deep awakening, revealing that reality is less about what's happening around us and more about what's happening within us. So when we talk about reality as a mirror of our inner conflicts, we're suggesting a revolutionary idea, that the keys to solving our external problems are not outside of us, but deeply rooted in our own psyche. Let's dive deeper into this notion, exploring how Jung's concepts help us see our lives as a reflection of our inner state. To understand how reality is a reflection of our inner conflicts, we need to delve into the Jungian concept of projection. Projection is a psychological mechanism where we attribute to other people or situations characteristics, emotions, and impulses that are actually our own. Jung described projection as a way to deal with elements of our unconscious that are difficult to acknowledge and accept within ourselves. By projecting them, these elements are displaced outside of us, allowing us to see them as if they were part of the external world. This idea is closely linked to the shadow, one of Jung's most important concepts. The shadow represents all the aspects of ourselves that we prefer not to recognize. Our fears, weaknesses, unacceptable desires, and personality traits we judge as negative. Instead of integrating these aspects into our consciousness, we tend to hide them and eventually project them onto others. When we encounter someone who deeply irritates us or a situation that disturbs us, it's useful to ask, what does this reveal about me? Why does this experience affect me so much? Jung believed that individuation, the process of becoming who we truly are, depends on integrating these aspects of the shadow. The more we ignore and repress the shadow, the more it subtly influences our lives in unconscious ways. We project our own weaknesses onto others, criticizing in them what we cannot accept in ourselves. Thus, the reality we perceive becomes a stage where our inner conflicts are acted out, repeating behavior patterns and feelings that keep us stuck. For example, someone with a deep fear of rejection might unconsciously attract rejection into their life by projecting that fear onto their relationships, interpreting any hint of disapproval as personal rejection. This cycle reinforces the belief that the world is a hostile place and that people can't be trusted. Instead of addressing the fear of rejection itself, this person sees the problem in others, creating a scenario where their internal conflicts are constantly validated. Jung teaches us that to break this cycle, we must turn our gaze inward, confronting our own vulnerabilities and wounds. This act of looking within, as Jung suggested, is no easy task. It requires courage to face what we've been avoiding for so long. Yet, in doing so, we begin to understand that our external frustrations and challenges are often invitations for self-awareness and personal transformation. By integrating these shadow elements and recognizing our projections, we take the first step toward true psychological freedom. Reality stops being a relentless enemy and transforms into a teacher, revealing aspects of our psyche that need to be understood and integrated. To make this idea of reality as a mirror of our inner conflicts more tangible, Let's explore some practical examples of how this concept shows up in our daily lives. Imagine a person who constantly feels undervalued and ignored by others, whether at work, in relationships, or even in social settings. This sense of being invisible might be deeply rooted in an internal belief that they're not good enough, stemming from past experiences of criticism or rejection. Instead of recognizing this belief as an inner wound, they project their insecurity onto the world, interpreting every action or word from others as proof of their own lack of worth. In this scenario, every time this person feels ignored, they become more convinced that they're not important, reinforcing a cycle of self-sabotage. They attract situations that perpetuate this feeling and react in ways that confirm their internal expectations. Reality becomes a perfect reflection of their internal conflict, a screen onto which their fears and insecurities are projected. Another example is someone who repeatedly ends up in toxic or dysfunctional relationships. Jung would say this repetition is a clear manifestation of unresolved unconscious patterns. Perhaps this person has a deep fear of abandonment or an unhealed emotional wound related to intimacy. Instead of confronting these fears, they attract partners who mirror their own insecurities and mistrust. These dysfunctional relationships are, in a way, a projection of their unmet needs and unhealed wounds. Observing these patterns offers us a powerful opportunity to realize that the difficulties we face are not merely a matter of bad luck or destiny, but rather a manifestation of our internal psychological processes. Jung teaches us that by identifying repetitive behavior patterns in situations that trigger intense emotional reactions, we are actually witnessing the movement of our own shadow. One last example involves the tendency to criticize others. Often, what bothers us most in others is a reflection of something we haven't accepted in ourselves. A person who gets irritated by someone else's laziness, for instance, might be projecting their own discomfort with moments of inactivity, or their own guilt for not being as productive as they think they should be. This harsh criticism of another's behavior can be a mirror of an unresolved internal struggle, where they cannot accept their own need for rest or their desire to be less demanding of themselves. By becoming aware of these patterns and accepting that what we see in the external world is largely a projection of our internal world, we begin to make room for transformation. Instead of blaming the world or others for our problems, we start looking inward and realize that the true power to change lies in our ability to know and transform ourselves. These examples serve as a reminder that the more we look outward and blame circumstances, the further we distance ourselves from the real source of our problems, which lies within us. By recognizing and integrating our internal conflicts, we begin to create a reality that is more harmonious and aligned with our true self. The acceptance of our inner conflicts is an essential step in the healing and transformation process that Jung describes as individuation. For Jung, individuation is the journey to becoming who we truly are, a process that involves integrating all aspects of the psyche, including the shadow and the parts we prefer to ignore. Only by embracing these repressed parts of ourselves can we reach a state of wholeness and psychological freedom. When we talk about accepting our internal conflicts, it's important to understand that this acceptance is not an act of resignation or passivity. Instead, it's an act of acknowledging and bringing to light what has been hidden in the depths of the unconscious. Jung himself suggested that confronting our shadow is the most challenging and essential aspect of our being. He believed that true transformation occurs when we can look at these elements with compassion, without judgment, recognizing them as legitimate parts of our psyche. This process of acceptance is deeply connected to the concept of archetypes and the collective unconscious. Jung believed that archetypes such as the hero, the sage, the anima, and the shadow are universal patterns that we all carry within us, shaping our perception of the world and our behavior in it. By integrating our shadow and the internal conflicts it contains, we become more aware of these archetypes and how they influence our lives. For example, when we confront our internal conflicts of rejection or fear of failure, we might connect with the hero archetype, the part of us that faces challenges, overcomes obstacles, and finds the courage to move forward despite adversity. This connection with the hero archetype allows us to view our struggles as an epic journey where each obstacle becomes an opportunity for personal growth and development. The process of individuation, then, transforms into a heroic journey of self-discovery, where we become the protagonists of our own narrative. Acceptance and integration of these internal conflicts also help us tap into the healer or sage archetype within ourselves. Jung believed that we all possess an innate ability to heal and to find wisdom within our wounds. As we confront our repressed emotions and look at our pain with new eyes, we start to develop a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us. This self-awareness empowers us to act with more empathy, compassion, and clarity in our interactions with others. One of Jung's greatest teachings is that true freedom does not come from eliminating external problems, but from transforming our relationship with them. When we stop fighting our internal emotions and start embracing them, we also stop projecting them onto the external world. This liberation from the cycle of repetition allows us to create a new reality based on understanding and self-love. This process of integration is a continuous journey, a lifelong endeavor. As we become more aware of our projections and internal conflicts, we begin to develop a more authentic and compassionate relationship with ourselves and others. We start to see the world not as a source of threat or conflict, but as a mirror that helps us see who we truly are and who we have the potential to become. As we conclude this reflection on the idea that reality is a mirror of our inner conflicts, we arrive at a profound understanding that the external world is a continuous reflection of our inner landscape. As Jung emphasized, the journey to true freedom begins when we look within and accept all aspects of who we are, the light and the dark. Jung taught us that every internal conflict is an opportunity for self-discovery. He believed that when we face our pains, frustrations, and fears, we are truly moving toward individuation, the process by which we become whole and complete. The acceptance of our wounds is an act of courage, a step toward letting go of resistance and denial, and finally embracing ourselves in our entirety. Think of your emotional wounds as seeds planted in the soil of your psyche. At first glance, they might seem like nothing but pain and negativity, but as you accept them and nurture them with compassion and self-understanding, these seeds begin to sprout, growing and transforming into something new. Painful experiences and internal conflicts, when recognized and integrated, become catalysts for profound personal growth. It is this process of transformation that leads us to a state of awakening where we begin to see reality with clarity and acceptance. The external world ceases to be a constant struggle and instead becomes a fertile ground for self-transformation. We come to understand that the challenges we encounter in the world are often just reflections of the challenges we need to face within ourselves. Every person who irritates us, every situation that frustrates us, is an invitation to take a closer look at our own patterns and emotions. Jung said that we do not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. This means that to find true peace and freedom, we must embrace our shadows with the same love we reserve for our strengths. The journey of individuation is about transforming what we fear into something we can integrate, learn from, and grow through. At this point, the inspiring message is clear. By accepting our wounds and inner conflicts, we free ourselves from the chains of projections and open ourselves up to a new way of being. We stop being victims of circumstances and become the creators of our own realities. Every conflict resolved within us creates space for something new to flourish, something that is in alignment with our true self. The power of acceptance is the key to transformation. When we welcome our vulnerabilities, when we stop judging our emotions and see them as integral parts of our journey, we begin to move toward wholeness. And it is in this wholeness that we find true freedom, the freedom to be who we really are, without masks, without illusions. So, the final question I leave for reflection is this: what if, instead of trying to change the world around us, we started by changing ourselves? What if, instead of fighting our internal conflicts, we embrace them as gateways to our own evolution? By doing so, we might discover that true awakening does not lie in controlling the external reality, but in transforming the mirror it presents to us, a reflection that always invites us to a deeper understanding of who we truly are. May this journey of self-discovery and integration continue to guide you toward a more authentic and illuminated life. Remember, the path to individuation is long, but every step we take toward our true self is a step toward freedom and a more harmonious reality.